My question was for Rabbi Wolf. As I heard your presentation, I said to myself, of course you think smoking is permissible. Because I asked you, Rabbi Wolf, I have one cigarette in front of me. Can I take one puff? Rabbi Wolf, would you tell me, can I take one puff of a cigarette? Google says there's no risk from one puff from one cigarette.
Well, I would point you to the Rambam in Halakhic that talks of a whole raft of human behavior. And all of them...
Statistically, is there any risk?
Excuse me. And all of them are the same. So that really, well, let me answer that question another way. There is obviously no pile of salt in the world. Because, well, 1 grain of salt is obviously not a pile of salt. And grains of salt are not a pile of salt, well, n plus 1 grains are also not a pile of salt. So basically, this is the same argument of basically, and that's what the Rambam points out in Halakhic. He has a whole raft of human activity. I assume all of them are approximately the same. None of them have deleterious effect if done once, but if done repeatedly, they are. So I would point in the Rambam as a...
But I don't understand. Is any activity then that, if when done many, many, many times deleterious, is usher?
Yes.
Anything.
Is that unclear?
No, so...
No, so I think the Rambam is absolutely clear on that all the activities mentioned in Halakhic that are deleterious are the same.
Right, but are things not mentioned in Halakhic, but we now know are deleterious when done many, many, many times, are they all usher? So if I were to show you, for example, that a person who jogs regularly, a person who jogs regularly suffers increased risks of being hit by a car. Or imkain ein l'davar sof. It seems to me that what's missing from your presentation was this notion of cumulative risk.
Well, I think it's missing in the Rambam. And I would point by, because all the, I don't know how many times.
So when somebody asks if they can go bungee jumping once, since if I bungee jumped regularly, the risk would be noticeable, I'm not allowed to go once. No, I don't understand.
What?
I don't understand. A person says, I want to go bungee jumping once, but if I bungee jumped 100 times, it would be dangerous. Do you let them go bungee jumping once?
I think bungee jumping, I think human activities that can be parcelized into 1 grain of salt, that's true. I think human activities that in general are part of the general practice, like the Rambam has noted in the Halakhic, that those are also. If someone would be in a play and wanted to take a puff of a cigarette, I would allow that, but...
I'm sorry, could you finish the sentence about what?
But, so if it was a human activity which reasonably could be done once, I would say it's allowed. Human activities which are done multiple times, when done multiple times, are prohibited. So one should put on their seatbelts every time. If there's one time that he has a broken arm, can't put on that seatbelt, or he's in a rush to make a conference because he left home late, then perhaps he can drive fast.
Right. This is a question for Dr. Buckman and leading into Dr. Gold. So I think that, as I mentioned to you earlier, there is a consistent metaphysical definition of death throughout Chazal, and that's the exit of the soul from the body. Person is an ensouled body. A corpse is a body lacking a soul. So within halakhic discourse, any biological, neurological, or even physiological criteria is only an indicator of whether the soul has left. Halakhic discourse therefore doesn't need a consistent conceptual definition of a person on which to base its judgments. So this leads to what Dr. Gold mentioned, that the idea that death is a pragmatic and fuzzy concept that was, I think, first introduced like 25 years ago by Baruch Brody and Amir Halevi. Based on that, I think, and the idea of the soul as being what defines a person in Chazal, there's nothing inherently problematic for halakhic to claim that the person is dead, the body is still alive in certain respects. And I think when we see, even someone who accepts, a posek who accepts brain death would not allow the Chevra Kadisha to come in and take the body directly after it was removed from the respirator and still, before pulmonary death has occurred and start, doing the tahara. I mean, it would be ridiculous. So yeah, I think it is already a pragmatic category in halacha from that perspective that just hasn't been made explicit. And just one more question that I asked everyone who does the kind of speculative work. What's the idea here? I mean, is there any example you could give where anticipating a technology that looks into the distant future has resulted in an effective, proactive, halakhic policy, legal response? I just want to know what the purpose is.
I'm not sure that I understand your question. Can you redefine exactly what you're asking?
Which question?
Because, I mean, I couldn't follow what exactly you were asking.
So I think just as to the question of death as a fuzzy concept, I think it already exists within halacha to an extent. You just have to point to where it already is, and that's because I think there is already a metaphysical conception of death. It's just not made explicit because it doesn't need to be made explicit.
Why not?
Because we only need to talk about indicators.
I'm not sure that even the Gemara in Yoma deals with the definition of death.
No, exactly, it doesn't.
Okay, so
Just
it's a
indicator.
functional discussion about when we stop Mechalel Shabbat
Absolutely.
for saving a person. It
Absolutely.
says nothing about what is the definition of death.
Mea chuvas.
So, therefore, I'm skeptical about the implicit definition of death that you mentioned, that it's when the neshama separates from the body.
No, I'm saying it never needs to be actually activated within a halakha. It's a metaphysical conception that we don't need to refer to. And as a result, we're free to differentiate between the death of a person and the full death of the body, as you seem to want to do.
Yeah, but the separation between the body and the non-body, it's something that I think you need to prove halakhically. I'm not sure it's there.
I mean, halakha doesn't seem to need the concept, so it doesn't, I don't know, even prove.
So maybe it doesn't exist halakhically.
I'm not sure what you mean, it doesn't exist halakha.
What about death of animals?
But
A lot of literature about death of animals, how would you find that? Define in terms of the soul.
they have a lower level of soul.
Okay, this is another assumption that you assume halachically, but I'm not sure it does exist halakhically.
What I'm saying, it doesn't exist within the halakhic discourse, it's a metaphysical concept.
So what's the relationship between this metaphysics
relevance is
and
that
halacha?
the relevance is that it frees us from looking, as you said, from looking for a definition.
I don't need this metaphysic ideas to construct the halacha, to deal with the halacha. I think it's even make things even more complex.
You
If
know,
I assume
I think I'm helping you because I'm saying the metaphysical concept already exists and it doesn't have to be talked about.
yeah.
It's not that we should say that there's no concept in Judaism of what a person is. I think there is, but it doesn't necessarily become activated within halakha.
So I think it'd be useful if as a halakhic decisor, I don't have the yumra, okay, I don't have the
Ambition.
that ambition, you know, I'm going to define what it means to be dead, okay? I only ask the following question, whether it is allowed to take this heart to save this kid that is in a grave position. I think this is a easier question to answer if I disconnect myself from the ontological question, is he dead or not dead?
It already has. It already has. Halakhic discourse, I'm saying, already has done that.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that in the sugya of what I try to exemplify that within halacha you have this concept. If you take another arena like shoteh, okay, I think one of the problems with this halachic domain is that you think categorically. If someone is shoteh, so he is shoteh for every aspect, and he can't do anything. If he's not shoteh, he is obligated in all the mitzvot and is 100% part of society. I think all the gray area is not well defined in halacha as well in the general law system. It's a problem. I think we should be more creative and more flexible.
So you're not talking about non-halacha, you're talking about non-metaphysics.
I'm not sure.
When you said looking non-halachically at halacha, It could be the halachas that way. You say, let's look non-ontologically or non-metaphysically at halachic sources. Forget the definition.
The definition, we can define halacha sociology oriented based, right?
Or functional.
So I think that today it's not halacha because poskim doesn't think this way. It doesn't mean that 50 years from now it will be the same. But I think at this
אבל יש הרבה דוגמאות הלכתיות שפוסקים אומרים, לדבר אחד זה נחשב ככה ולדבר אחד זה נחשב אחר.
ברור, אבל אני חושב שבשאלות כמו למשל מוות מוחי, הסוגיה של מי שטבע במים שלהם סוף לא עלתה על שולחן הדיונים בכלל. כלומר, האנלוגיה היותר מופשטת בין ספק אפיסטמי לגבי הגדרת המוות לבין ספק אונתולוגי לגבי הגדרת המוות, הלינק הזה נראה סברות קרס היום. זה לא נראה משהו שאתה יכול לקשור. אני חושב שהמציאות תחייב אותנו לעשות את ההפשטה הזאת בתהליך החשיבה ההלכתי. דברים שאולי פעם לא היו באותה שכונה, יתחילו להיות קרובים אחד לשני.
Very much.